Check out FlipsideGaming.com for all your gaming needs. Use the promo code HEROES to save 10% on all orders over $10. Hey there, this is John from Heroes and Legends, and welcome to another edition of the Magic the Gathering Market Watch. It is Throne of Eldraine Prerelease weekend, which means one thing for a lot of players that play Standard. The new Standard season is about to begin, and a lot of players are trying to figure out that meta already, and you're already seeing influences from what people are discovering. Also, as you know, the Modern meta has been very shaken up due to the banned and restricted list updates from a number of weeks ago. Players are still trying to solve that format. Again, you're seeing a lot of price influences due to that fact, as well as a whole lot of other influencers that we'll see as we go through today's video. One side note, I did a video on Thursday talking about Throne of Eldraine prices, so I'm not going to include them in the Market Watch for a few weeks. I'll continue to do companion videos until they stabilize a little bit. Without any further ado, though, let's get into it. Alright, we'll begin as we always do with Standard. This is the top 5 Standard legal cards that have lost value this week, but we're also going to look at 3 honorable mentions. This is kind of a fond farewell week to a lot of cards because rotation is about to occur. But for today, we get one more chance to say goodbye to some of these cards in Standard. Let's get going. Our first honorable mention, though, is not a card that's leaving. It's Omnith, Locus of the Royal. It goes down 49 cents to 12.16. Now, this card had a very successful Standard season in Elemental decks. So far, though, the early buzz when it comes to people brewing decks and trying to figure out what's going to be good in the next meta doesn't have a lot of folks looking at Elementals that strongly. That could change, obviously, in a week or two, but at least right now, this card is a little bit softer. Now, it's still a great Commander card as well. There's going to be Commander players interested in this. But also, this is seeing a tad bit of Modern play right now. There is a Modern Elementals deck, although it usually only runs one copy of this in the main. Our next honorable mention is yet another Core Set 2020 card that is sticking around. It's Yurok, the Desecrated, down 60 cents to 11.80. I think part of the reason this one is declining is so far in the early brewing stages, there's a lot of people looking at mono and 2-color builds for the most part. It's maybe some of the decks that could be more successful early on in the season. However, I do see the Yurok Field of the Dead deck kicking around, so you never know. If it has a good week 1, this could turn around very quickly. Another card that's also good for Commander or Brawl, too. Third honorable mention is Leyline of Sanctity. This is the one from Modern Masters 2015. It goes down 63 cents to 7.60. This card hasn't seen a ton of sideboard play so far in Standard. However, I have seen some early brews using it, so maybe we'll see some more play in the coming months. Now, this does see Modern sideboard play as well as a little bit of play out of sideboards for Legacy and Vintage. This will protect you against burn, discard, and mill, for example. Okay, number 5 brings us to a card that is actually going to be rotating out. This is Wayward Swordtooth. It goes down 65 cents to 6.27. And yeah, a card that is mostly soft due to rotation, but you may want to include this in a Commander Dino or Lands build. Number 4, Crucible of Worlds, also rotating out of Standard. The 5th Dawn copy, down 69 cents to 27.81. Magic 2019, down 72 cents to 21.17 this week. So we know what this does. It didn't really do a whole lot in Standard, unfortunately, during its time, but it's still a very good card. Modern, you'll find this in Tron builds and others there. Usually it's like a 1, sometimes a 2 of in those type of decks between the sideboard and the main. You're also going to find this a little bit in Vintage, too. It is a great Commander and Casual card, though. Number 3 is Stomping Ground. This is the original one, though, from Guild Pact. It goes down 85 cents to $19. When it comes to Standard, this is going to see a fair amount of play next season, and for many months to come, I have no doubt. The Giants deck this season might want this, as well as many other builds that are starting to take hold. But the reason this did get a little bit soft is because of Modern. Now, it still sees a lot of Modern play. Jund, Titan Shift, Dredge, those are some pretty big decks, and many more there. However, percentage of play on this is down a little bit due to the banning of Hogak and Faithless Looting in the format. Number 2 is Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, down $1.06 to $12.54. Even though this is not rotating out itself, it is losing a ton of support with those Ixalan Vampires. Because of that, this card is very soft right now. Still a great Oathbreaker or Commander card, though, for Vampire builds. Number 1, Leyline of the Void. Magic 2011 goes down 92 cents to 21.11. Guild Pact goes down 289 to 29.50. This was recently reprinted in Core Set 2020, much like Leyline of Sanctity, part of the reason that it softened up a little bit. However, there's a much bigger reason this card has lost the value that it has, and that, of course, is the banning of Faithless Looting and Hogak in Modern. For a while there, decks running those cards were so prevalent that people were even main decking this thing in the format. It's still a great sideboard card for Modern as well as Vintage and Legacy sometimes. Just doesn't feel as critical as it did just a number of weeks ago. On to the top 5 Standard legal cards that have gained value this week. Number 5 is a card rotating out of Standard. Zacama Primal Calamity goes up 99 cents to 16.62. Well, obviously this is not going up because of standard, but because of commander. First off, you could just simply use this as a commander of your dinosaur deck and be pretty happy with it. Recently, we talked about how one of the Commander 2019 cards, Sanctum of Eternity for Merciless Rage, could play really well with this. But there's a couple Throne of Eldraine cards, too, that have people thinking about this. If you watch the Command Zone podcast this week, one of the cards that they talked about that could play well with Zacama is Castle Garenbrig, just simply because it allows you to get there a little bit quicker, and it's just such a powerful play once you do get there. Also, this mana can be used for creature-activated abilities, so it could jumpstart what you're doing there as well. Another card from the new set, Fires of Invention. If this is out, you can cast 2 spells, and then take your mana and sink it into Zacama's activated abilities for value. Number 4 is Assassin's Trophy, up $1.49 to $19.99. This is going to be sticking around standard, and it's going to continue to be good there. However, the reason the card is as hot as it is right now is because of Modern. You're going to find it in some big builds there, like Jund, or Zethopter Sword builds, Devoted Company, The Rock. Also in Legacy, you'll see this in Depths builds and 4-color Control, for example. Number 3 is Knight of the Ebon Legion, up $1.55 to $5.80. This one's kind of interesting because in the upcoming Brawl deck Knight's Charge, there's going to be a copy of this in there. That means more copies of this are going to be entering the marketplace, but it's still going up in value. Why is that? Well, the big reason is so many people are brewing with this card in Standard. We already know that it's a great card from last season, right? Now, we might have lost vampires, but we gained a lot of important knights. So there are decks like Orzhov Knights, Rakdos Knights, and Mardu Knights all running this already. I've also seen this in Golgari midrange, Mono Black aggro, Rakdos aggro. This is going to be a card you're going to see a lot of next season. Also, remember, there are some cards from Throne of Eldraine that are playing well with this. Castle Locthwain is one of them. And also, like I mentioned, for Brawler Commander, you have the front-facing commander of that Knight's Charge deck, Circuin, Hero of Ashval, as well as all the other knights that are coming, not only in that product, but in the set proper. Number 2 is Spawn of Mayhem, up $2.98 to $5.69. Okay, this is another card that was seen in a supplemental product, actually. You might remember, Ravnica Allegiance Rakdos Guild Kits had a copy of this. So even with the extra copies out there, this card is extremely hot. And, much like the previous card, it has to do with the early expectation that it's going to see a fair amount of standard play. Now, this was a good card in the past, but now I think in this new standard it could be amazing. Rakdos aggro, Golgari midrange, and Mono Black aggro are all decks that I've seen it run in already. Number 1, another card rotating out. It is Mox Amber. It goes up $4.99 to $16.98. I remember a number of months ago telling people to pick these things up while they're cheap. Get a playset, because at some point someone was going to figure out what to do with this card. Well, it looks like that day has come. This was good in the previous standard season, right, with Kethis? But this isn't about standard, obviously. This is about modern and even commander, too, to some degree. When it comes to modern, Paradoxical Urza is a newer build out there. It's looking very good. It's going to run Mox Amber. I've seen some deck lists running 4 of these, sometimes 3, sometimes 1. So it does vary a little bit. And I do know people are already thinking ahead to when Throne of Eldraine comes out, working this card into that build too, Emery Lurker of the Loch. Potentially, we could be looking at one of the top tier modern decks going forward, no doubt. I've also seen modern Kethis combo decks running these 2 cards with Mox Opals and Blasting Stations. In Commander, you have access to those type of combos, plus much more. Okay, speaking of modern, let's move on to the top 5 modern legal cards that have lost value this week. Number 5, Surgical Extraction from Modern Masters 2015 down $1.99 to $42.96. Very similar story here as to Leyline of the Void. Still a good sideboard card in Modern. Still see this in Legacy and Vintage sides too. But with Faithless Looting and Hogak out of the Modern format, this card just isn't as sought after as it was just a little while ago. Because of that, it continues to stay soft. Number 4 is Gemstone Caverns. This goes down $2.11 to $35.84. This card got really hot during all the buzz with the London Mulligan, and the card's still good. It's a good modern card, but where the meta is kind of taking us, it is taking us away from a lot of the decks that run this. However, there's still some good ones out there that will continue to run this, and I'm sure will have success. These are decks like Mono Blue Tron, Twiddlestorm, Colorless Eldrazi, and there's others too. But because percentage of play is down a little bit, this card is softer this week. Number 3 is Tarmogoyf. This is the one from Modern Masters. It goes down $2.55 to $55.99. Like I've been saying for a number of weeks, though, a lot of these Goyfs are just trying to find their price point in the new meta. Percentage-wise, it is seeing maybe a little less play than it was seeing because you just have more options out there. People are playing Stoneblade decks and Stoneforge Mystic packages. This is still awesome in Jund, The Rock, Traverse Shadow, and many other decks. Also, don't forget about the Legacy play this sees Temur Delver, 4-color Loam, and in Vintage you'll find this in Sultai midrange. Goyf's not going anywhere. Number 2 is Sword of Fire and Ice from Darksteel. It goes down $3.89 to $80.85. The unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic in Modern made this card just ignite a few weeks back. And now you're seeing retraction, which is pretty normal. Does not mean that this card is not successful in Modern at all. The card is doing amazing with Stoneforge and various Stoneblade decks, as well as just Stoneforge Mystic packages. And this is going to continue to see a lot of Modern play going forward, not to mention the play that it already has seen in Legacy and Commander. But it does have to find its appropriate price point now that the hype is starting to settle down a little bit. Number 1 is Godsire, down $4.36 to $18.99. This card also got extremely hot recently due to the Primal Genesis Commander 2019 deck. It was a good upgrade there. And also, there were a lot of people pulling out Outlaw Palani Nest Tender to build around from that deck. This was a good card to include in those builds too. And because it's yet to be reprinted, it did dry up pretty quickly. Now things are normalizing a little bit. It's trying to find its true price point after the hype goes down. And we see it soften up some this week. Okay, on to the top 5 Modern legal cards that have gained value this week. Coming in at number 5 is Dark Confidant from Ravnica, City of Guilds. It goes up $2.64 to $73.85. This one lost a little value recently, and now it's just rebounding. Part of the reason it has been unstable is just simply because it's still seeing a ton of Modern play, but especially if you look at the Jund deck, it's seeing a lot less than it was seeing for a while. And that's because of Wrenn and 6. Like, you need to make room for Wrenn and 6. A lot of times it's at the expense of Bob here. He gets kicked out. So I have seen Jund decks not running any Bobs. I've seen them definitely running less Bobs than they were running. But with that being said, the card is still seeing play in a lot of Jund builds. Also seeing play in the Rock very consistently. Also in some of the Stoneblade builds, which we know are very popular, among other places. Legacy, still a hot card there too, and Golgari Depths in 4-color Loam. Sees a little Vintage play too. Number 4, Jace the Mind Sculptor. This is the one from Masters 25. It goes up $3.74 this week to $138.97. Jace started to get hot with the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic and the banning of Hogak, as well as Faithless Looting, just simply because the speculation being that this card is just getting better without those other 2 cards in the format. It's going to see more play. And with Stoneforge Mystic, we've already seen those cards work well together in Legacy. Why not Modern? And guess what? That speculation was right. Jace is seeing more Modern play, and I think this card will continue to see more play. The big question is now, where are these price points going to land for these cards? They have been up and down a little bit as they're trying to stabilize. There's a chance this could stabilize close to this price point, maybe a little bit lower. Number 3, had to be here, right? Stoneforge Mystic goes up $4.32 to $75.87, of course, due to the unbanning in Modern, and the success this card has been seeing so far in the format. Number 2 is Prismatic Vista of $4.47 to $34.99. This has been a very successful card in Modern as well as Legacy ever since it came out in Modern Horizons. It fits very well into mostly 2-color builds, but there's some really good ones in the Modern format right now. Many of the Stoneblade builds fit that criteria, also control builds like Azorius Control, but also, and I think the reason for the spike this week more than anything, Paradoxical Urza. That is also Azorius colors. Number 1, Mox Opal. Scars of Mirrodin goes up $7.97 to $119.98. Modern Masters 2015 up $9.31 to $126.33. Wow. So for the longest time, this card kind of sat between $100 and $110. I kind of thought it would stick to that point a little bit longer, but something happened this week that kind of changed that, and again, it comes down to that Paradoxical Urza build. Now, prior to Paradoxical Urza, this was still a great card, right? Think about Modern, for example. This was in the Urza Thopter Sword decks, which have been performing very well. Hardened Scales, Classic Affinity, War Prison, Chargetron. Also in Legacy, Ad Nauseam Tendrils, Bomberman, Vintage Paradoxical Outcome, the list goes on and on. But now, with a lot of the excitement around this Paradoxical Urza deck that's been happening, especially with Emery coming out now, this card makes a really big leap this week. Will that deck be able to maintain as one of the top tier decks? We'll have to see. Time will tell. By the way, Emery will also increase the desire for this card among Commander players. Regardless, though, this is a big jump, and no matter what happens, I think you're going to see at least a little retraction in the coming weeks. Okay, on to the Vintage Spotlight. This is where we discuss cards that are played in Legacy, Vintage, 93, 94, or also sometimes just cards that are important to collectors. Okay, spoiler alert, you're going to see a lot of the original dual lands on this list today. They got very hot this week. Just generally, especially the revised ones, do feel like they have a lot of room to grow. Now, I won't say this for everyone, but keep in mind, original dual lands were printed in Alpha, Beta, Unlimited, and of course Revised. They are on the reserve list, Revised being the last printing. This is the revised copy of Underground Sea. It goes up $4 to $529.98. Not a huge increase percentage-wise, but I did want you to kind of pick up on the trend that's going on here. Next is Taiga. This is also from Revised. It goes up $414 to $164.24. Scrubland from Revised goes up $580 to $169.99. We'll take a break from Dual Lands for a moment and look at City of Traders. This is also a reserve list card, though. It goes up $685 to $197.65. And you're going to find this in a number of legacy decks, including Sneak and Show, Mono Red Prison, and many more. Okay, back to Dual Lands with Tundra from Revised. It goes up $705 this week to $297.49. Tropical Island from Revised goes up $940 to $295. Here's a different reserve list card for you. This is Sedge Troll from Unlimited, although it did get a reprinting in Revised. It goes up $1019 to $95.97 this week. Finally, a card that's not on the reserve list. It's City of Brass from Arabian Nights. It goes up $31.35 to $360.14 this week. Even though this has been reprinted many times, this original copy is always going to hold a lot of value. It's just rare, hard to find in good condition at this point, and sought after by collectors and 93, 94 players as well. Now, if you want a cheaper copy of this card to play with, obviously you can grab one of the reprints. Technically, this is a modern legal card, actually. Back to the reserve list with Fast Bond. This is the one from Unlimited, although it did get printed one more time in Revised. It goes up $37.74 this week to $87.74. And this recently got unrestricted in Vintage and is seeing more Vintage play right now. Here's a standard legal card for you, so definitely not on the reserve list. It's Mountain, but it's a special kind of Mountain. So you've probably seen on these videos before every once in a while that Arabian Nights Mountain jumps up. This was a reprinting of that in Magic Anthologies. Obviously, the most notable difference is the white border here. It goes up $40.24 to $41.50. Clearly, this is just a buyout. Back to Dual Lands, we have Volcanic Island. Revised goes up $20.32 to $493.42. Unlimited going up $90 to $987.50. Bayou, Revised goes up $811 to $303.63. Unlimited goes up $90.60 to $799. Mox Ruby makes our list today, going up $394.99 to $2,999.95. This is the copy from Unlimited, and of course, it's on the reserve list. And another Unlimited card that, of course, is on the reserve list, it's Black Lotus. It goes up $2,364.03 to $16,999. Now, that total price actually didn't change from last week, but this is still showing up on some of the market sites, so I wanted to put it in the video today in case you had questions. The story is actually the same as last week. Somebody put a Black Lotus up for sale at an extremely high price, and that's what's throwing off the online data. A lot of times people might do that to go ahead and just put it out there and kind of fish for an offer. However, because not a lot of these cards get sold or there's not a lot of these transactions to track online any given week, it does tend to throw off the market data. Now, if you are actually in the market to buy an unlimited lightly played Black Lotus, I would expect to pay closer to $9,000 to $10,000. Okay, on to our Commander Spotlight. Big variety of cards to look at today. Let's go. Mycosynth Lattice from Battlebond goes up $1 to $60. Not a huge increase here, but I wanted to point it out, not just for Commander purposes, but also for Modern and Legacy, and even a little bit of Vintage. This card got extremely hot with the release of Karn the Great Creator. Cooled off a little bit recently, especially considering Karn and Mystic Forge got restricted in Vintage. But now there's some new cards that could get people interested in this again. Dockside Extortionist from the Mystic Intellect Commander 2019 deck is one of them, especially for Commander. I think that could be good. And the other one is a card we talked about earlier, Emery Lurker of the Loch. Static Orb, this is the one from 7th edition, up at $1 to $22.35. Again, a card that's not moving a whole lot, but with Emery coming out, I just wanted to call it to your attention. This is already seeing a lot of play in Urza builds, and Emery is just a good complement to what those decks are already doing. Maze of Ith, this is the original one from the Dark. It goes up $1.04 this week to $32.30. Great card for Commanders, he's Legacy, and a little Vintage play too. Recently, though, this became unrestricted in the old school formats 94, 95, and 96, so it does have more people paying attention to it. Haven't seen you in a while. Expropriate goes up $1.08 to $46.86, and this is a Commander blue favorite. Ball Lightning, but this is the one from the Beatdown box set, which is a little bit harder to find. It goes up $1.13 to $4.26 this week. Now, the reason I even bothered to include this one is because, first off, that's a good percentage jump. But secondly, even though the other copies of Ball Lightning aren't necessarily taking off right now, Graven Predator Captain from the Commander 2019 Merciless Rage deck has inspired people to go out and pick up Ball Lightning. This could be an early indication of some other movements. Mana Vault, good vintage card, good commander card, another card that could be moving because of Emery approaching. Unlimited goes up $1.08 to $130.71. Revised goes up $1.23 to $29.17. Knight Exemplar, obviously this one's moving because of all the excitement around the Throne of Eldraine Knights like we talked earlier. This goes up $1.27 to $12.73. This is the one from Magic 2011. Overburden, this was hot for a while, then it cooled off. This week it goes up $1.36 to $9.94, and the reason it's going up again is because of one of the Brawl cards, and that's Chulane, Teller of Tales. One thing to remember about these Brawl cards, though, they can be found obviously in the corresponding Brawl decks, but they can also be found in collector boosters in non-foil versions. This, of course, is only in foil in a Brawl deck, but if you buy a collector booster, you could get a non-foil copy. So just good to know when it comes to trying to assess how many copies could be out there at any given time. Also, that's true for the buy box promo. If you get the buy box promo from your game store, it will be foil, but you could open a non-foil and collect your boosters, and any of those other cards that are not in the regular set, but in other products, like cards that are exclusive to the Planeswalker decks, for example. Ren Ansix goes up $1.36 to $91.38. Sure, this is a good commander card, good Oathbreaker card, but it's really moving in price probably more so because of Modern as well as Legacy. In Modern, this is in Jund, a very popular deck right now. Also in Traveler's Shadow, many times out of the side there. In Legacy, it's in Temur Delver, 4-color Control, and others. Drafna's Restoration from Antiquities, it goes up $1.50 to $13.50. Now, this is a decent commander card. It sees a little pauper play too from time to time, but I think the reason people are speculating on it right now is because of one of the cards from the Brawl decks, and that's a Leela Artful Provocateur, which you're going to find in the Fairy Schemes deck. These two have some synergy together for commander, definitely. Necropotence, this is the one from Ice Age. It goes up $1.51 to $16.79. Extremely hot card recently because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth, which can be found in Commander in 2019's Merciless Rage deck. So many people are trying to build around that card right now, and this card is perfect in those type of builds. The other copies are slowing down finally. This one was kind of lagging behind a little bit, so it is going up a little more this week. Sword of Feast and Famine from Mirrodin Besieged. It goes up $1.52 to $67.42. Great card for Commander, sometimes even sees a tad bit of Legacy play, but really the story here has been more about Modern and the unbanning of Stoneforge Mystic. Now this isn't seeing as much play as Sword of Fire and Ice or Batterskull with that card right now, but it is still seeing some play in the format. Kinsbale Cavalier, this is from Morningtide. It goes up $1.56 to $6.99. Great card if you're trying to build a Knight Commander deck right now for sure. And also it is a rare for Morningtide, so let's get it out of the way. Cards from that time period of Magic, they had a lower print run, there was less demand on them. They tend to get a little spiky when people start paying attention to them out of nowhere. That's part of the reason this card has been moving as aggressively as it has been. Gilded Drake, this is on the reserve list. It goes up $2.05 this week to $68.44. Sees a little Legacy play sometimes in the sideboard of Merfolk, but this has been a strong commander card, especially in some of the competitive builds. Speaking of good competitive commander cards, Urza Lord High Artificer goes up $2.09 to $44.99. And aside from commander, obviously we have been talking about it throughout the video, but this is definitely leaving its mark on Modern as well. This is in the very popular Urza Thopter decks and of course that newer Paradoxical Urza build. What's scary is this only stands to get better with Emery. Worldgorger Dragon from Eternal Master still on our list. It goes up $2.49 this week to $11. A lot of players have been picking this up as an upgrade for the Merciless Rage Commander 2019 deck. Also, I have seen players building around those various commanders and putting this card into those decks. Although, I will say, this one is moving a lot more aggressively than the original Judgment version, and I think that's partially due to this just being a little bit dry in the marketplace. Demonic Tutor, this is the one from Dual Decks Anthology. It goes up $2.63 to $35.06. We know this is a great vintage card. It's been a great commander card for a long time, too. Recently, it's been hotter because of Carrick, Son of Yawgmoth. Obviously, it fits perfectly into those mono black builds. But there's a newer card, too, coming from Throne of Eldraine that could be pushing this a little bit. That's Mystic Sanctuary. These two cards are mentioned together on the Command Zone podcast this week. Just being able to Demonic Tutor more than one time per game feels pretty good to me. Chainer Dementia Master. This goes up $3.70 this week to $8.26. Another card that has been popular in those Garrick, Son of Yawgmoth decks. On to the Poplar Spotlight, starting with Chromatic Star. This goes up 12 cents to $6.72. This is the one from Time Spiral. This sees play in Infinity and Tron, as well as other decks in the format. But honestly, maybe the reason it's going up is Modern, because Tron builds run it there too. Not to mention Urza Thopter builds, and sometimes even Paradoxical Urza. Priest of Titania. This goes up 13 cents to $4.89. This is the one from Commander Anthology. You'll find this in Pauper Elves. Stonehorn Dignitary goes up 15 cents to 73 cents. This is in Tron builds and some others in Pauper. Also sees a little modern play. Muldrifter from Lorwyn goes up 20 cents to $1.47. This is in Scred, Tron, and other decks in the format. Also sees a little modern play, most recently in Bant Soul Herder, which is doing pretty well. And this does see Commander play too, of course. On to the Premium Spotlight. I'll give my quick disclaimer here. I don't like to talk too much about rare cards, foils, and such, because a lot of times, like that Black Lotus we talked about earlier, prices can be hard to find online. And if you don't have enough transactions, the data can be skewed. But I like to at least find one that is moving along with the market. Today I picked Mox Amber. The pre-release promo foil is going up $3.86 to $39.99, and the Dominaria regular foil is going up $7 also to $39.99 this week because of the reasons we discussed earlier. Alright, with that being said, that concludes the Market Watch for this week. Now later this week I'm going to do a special Market Watch where we look at some cards that are rotating out of Standard, and later in the week we're going to do a special look at Throne of Eldraine cards. And then next Saturday, we'll be back here doing this all over again. But until then, hey, thanks for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe and have a great day. Hey, thanks for watching. This video is made possible through the generous support of viewers like you on Patreon. Check out the description below for links to our Patreon page as well as our Amazon affiliate store, where a small percentage of all sales will also help support the channel. Finally, if you haven't had a chance yet to subscribe, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the new videos on Heroes and Legends. Talk to you again soon and have a great day.